I have just played for you O Borden Source by Franz Liszt. O Borden Source means by the source or by the stream. And this piece is all about water. Liszt got the ideas for this piece when he was 25 and 26 years old and living in Switzerland, and he fell in love with the Swiss countryside with all of its beautiful lakes and rivers and streams. And 2 years later, he wrote this piece, and it was published a few years after that. And then Liszt focused almost exclusively on a massive concertizing career. He was really the very first international music superstar. There was such an enormous following. There was a movement that was called Lisztomania, that people were manic for him. He really was just an astounding virtuoso, brilliant and charismatic. People were just swooning over him. And then he retired from the concert stage and moved to Weimar and focused arduous work with his composing and conducting and revising of a lot of the works that he had written earlier, including O Borden Source. And he seriously changed this piece and transformed it and made it much more beautiful and more playable. And that's the version we have today. And it's under the collection called The Years of Pilgrimage. And this is an epic 3-volume cycle of 26 pieces. And O Borden Source falls into the first volume called The Swiss Years. One of the things about Liszt was his generosity. And I'm really deeply touched by this, that he was the first person to do the benefit recital and the master classes. And he taught so many pianists. He's probably taught more pianists with classical piano music than any other pianist. And many people can trace their lineage right to Liszt, myself included. My teacher, Philip Lorenz, his teacher, Claudio Arrau, his teacher, Martin Krause, and then Franz Liszt. And if you look at any musical tree, you can see all of a sudden you get Liszt, and the tree goes way out, and all these branches drop down of all the people he taught. It's really an extraordinary contribution. Now, with this piece, Liszt has included a poem by the German poet Schiller. He included it on the title page of the piece. And it goes like this. In a whispering cool, start the games of young nature. And what does that mean? Starting the games, the play. It's the play of the water. And the water is the whispering coolness. How does he put that into this piece? In the key of A flat major, and here's our scale, and here is a triad, the A flat is the tonic, C 3rd degree, and the E flat. Well, he starts with a middle part. I'm taking this down into the layers because there are lots of elements in this piece. In the first layer, I'm going to talk about is this murmuring middle part of the alto. It's all 16th notes. And this I hear as the whispering coolness. Listen to this. He starts on the tonic, A flat. It's a very beautiful part, and that goes on and on and on throughout the entire piece. Then another element is introduced immediately, and it's this. You will hear this right above the murmuring alto part. You will hear this from the soprano. So these seconds resolving to the third from the murmuring alto part. goes new harmony. And he keeps going. Now it gets dissonant and dark and turning and a chord. It's all leading to that moment. Then there's the bass part, and this is another way that Liszt is playing. He's physically playing at the instrument. And this is what he does with the left-hand part. With the tonic of A flat and the dominant of E flat, he is starting with the dominant pitch of E flat and going up 2 E flats, the distance 2 octaves apart. So dominant and then A flat tonic. And another repetition, and so 2 of those. And then he moves up to the subdominant D flat. Now this is going to sound strange. And B flat. Then the next big phrase repeats for the first 4 big beats, just like we had at the beginning. 2 E flats, 2 A flats, 2 E flats, 2 A flats. Now it goes and changes to the C flat. And the A sharp, there's no A sharp in the key of A flat major. And that's telling you, and there it is, B natural and D sharp. All we're missing is the F sharp, which we get right here. And we know we're in B major. Seamless modulation. And he's keeping the same idea going now, except in this remote key of B major with no warning. It just eased right in. So let's continue with this left hand alone part. And all of these, notice my touch. Now watch this. Playing. He's taking the 5th of B major and pronouncing it. I'm B major. Now, watch this. I went down a half step to B flat major. And now I'm going to keep the B flat in the bass. That's my new tonic for this last big phrase. Now with the 2 pitches of F and B flat, the dominant and the tonic and the dominant, this is this rocking thing. And the other pitches, this is really going all over the map. And 2 and now the interesting thing is the top note of that left hand belongs to the melody of the soprano. So if I take just those seconds and thirds that resolve, this is your mantra. You know this like the back of your hand. I've played the whole piece just using that element. And those to me are the prisms of the light catching on the water and making the little diamond sparkles. And they're moving very fast and fluid. This is marked here, dolce tranquillo, sweet and tranquil, and the tempo is allegretto grazioso, moderately moving and graceful. So now Liszt is going to show one of his signature technical things of hand crossing, of sharing a melody first with the right hand and answering with the left, and the right hand and the left. And this is how this works. And that's what those all are in the upper reaches for the left hand. It's part of this melody. Now if I put everything together now, I still would like you to listen for the resolution of the second down to the third. It's in there. It's kind of hard to hear, especially when we add this bouncing bass line, which is marked with little tiny arrowheads, which are marcato signs, and it means a combination of staccato and slightly accented, so another prism. So he's got a lot of elements here that are all reflecting the light. So this touch, like a little pinpoint. I worked a lot on this. It's hard to balance that and get used to the technique of the piano. But here it is now. I'm going to play as written. Going along. Now here we are at the B major modulation. And he's giving another little melodic idea here now. This is just developing. Each new part is going to develop with another element and another element. And this element, what I found absolutely beautiful, is this little turn. And then he's, so let's listen for that. Sorry. Here. Now, repetition. Here it is. Here it is again. What's next? Back to the main theme material with a variation. And there are going to be 4 variations on the main material. And now I'd like to show you what I'm looking at here. It's a great pleasure to be able to share this with you today. This is a brand new engraving that I've made of a wooden source using public domain music, but in a complete new layout arrangement on the 11 inches by 17 inches wide format. And you could see here that I have 4 what I call systems. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a 6-page chart. And all of these colors that you see here and labels you get on the color structural analysis. The working copy, which this is with the large regular sized notes, in your chart package comes like this, black and white. And I really love looking at this. There's so much open space here. Here's the poem in German and in English. You can get all of these supplies from my website, sallychristianmusic.com. These are digital downloads, and you simply take them to your printer and have them printed out. In your chart package, you also get on 3 pages on the vertical axis, the satellite view. And this is now the entire piece in the black and white. This is going to make a lot of sense and make the piece totally come into focus when I then make, and I have to do this one first before I can make the color structural analysis. And here it is. Now this I printed from my home printer on 8.5 by 11 size sheets. I didn't even have to go to the copy shop to have them printed on the heavy cardstock. And this is an option for you too. The notes are very small. It's not meant to be learned from this size. But when you have your notes learned on the big size main file, then putting this on the music rack and playing the whole thing straight through with no page turns is going to be enormously helpful for you. So I'd like to just take a closer look at this, of the entire piece, of what's the map of the piece. And here is the opening material here in the blue box. Here was our phrase 1 and 2, and the repetition here, this and this are identical, and right here with these orange dashed lines is where the harmony changed. It always comes at this midway point. And then we had a modulation, and the same material with a few new elements, dum-be-dum and dum-bum, came at this second two systems of your initial opening blue box. A little bit unfolding in the remote key of B major, and then down a half step to B flat major. And the churning back and forth, tonic, dominant, dominant, tonic, dominant, tonic, dominant, tonic, stretching to the cadenza, which is what I ended with, and that's in the pink box. A cadenza is a solo passage, and Liszt, being the virtuoso that he was, and he was fantastic at improvising. He could toss these things off just on the fly, and he loved to do that. And you will see 5 of these little mini cadenzas in this piece, all marked in the pink boxes. Here's the first one, which I played. Here's the second one. Here is the third one. Here is the fourth one. And here is the 5th one. Not a flashy cadenza, but a paired off, dreamy staircase to heaven cadenza. That's what I call that one. I can't wait to get to that part in the piece with you. And then going to look at all of these variations. Here is your opening theme, and then the 2 remote keys. Next blue box is right here with the variation back to the A flat major, very similar to this part here, with some new changes between the hands. And then the next variation comes right here in this blue box. Very interesting variation here. The third one is right up here, where the piece is really is a tour de force, marked brilliant and very full and rich. And here is your last blue box here, the material, the variation for this measure being identical to this. And then the final cadenza. The last thing are the green boxes right here, and that has a new element of a pedal point that doesn't appear in any of the other parts of the piece. So I designated that with its own color, and it comes here, here, and here. That's a unit. And interestingly, it's E major and drops down a half step to E flat major. He likes doing this, taking the 2 measure phrase and then dropping it down a half step. Then he does it again in this green box with these 2 systems with, guess what? The same 2 keys that he introduced at the beginning. B major, B flat major. Here it is. B major, B flat major. And finally, here in the tonic home key of A flat major with your A flat pedal point. And the only other 2 places we haven't talked about are these spectacular 2 measure phrases, one here and one here. And these are what I call the exotic harmonies, which reference what I believe is the Hungarian gypsy influence from Liszt's childhood. So looking at this away from the piano will be just as helpful for you, if not more, than your actual practicing. When you can get this in your mind and be able to play the piece in your mind and not get stuck, then you really know it. So now I finished with that cadenza, and I am going to be on my, I'm going to play that cadenza one more time here. This is the top of my page 2. of your working copy, and this is measure 10. It starts with a diminished chord. That would be the full chord. And it goes in the left hand alone. And the unit that you just heard repeats identically, one more time up the octave. The right hand has its repetition of this. And repeat exactly one more octave up. And when we get to the top, there's our diminished chord with the F in. This one just had that, and here it has, you know, like spinning and spiraling, like a little top, and dies away with the volume. There's one more element that Liszt is playing with, and that is the meter of this piece. It is actually written in 12/8 time, not in what you hear with the ear as 4/4 time. And I made another addendum. There are two more actual addendums here that I thought were important in learning this piece. This is one of the ways of showing here the phrase structure for the opening measures 1 through 9. And in 12/8 time, this piece really begins on the third count. And I'm going to hold this and play this and count out loud, so you can follow the music as I count out loud these 12 beats, and you will see why I have an open measure here and here and here. I engraved it that way because that fits the phrase structure that Liszt is playing with. So here are the counts. I'm just going to play the right hand because obviously I can't play the left hand if I'm holding this. So here are the counts. 2 rests. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3. Let's do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3. And it keeps going that way for the entire piece. And it's counterintuitive. When you learn this, your ear is going to hear it because this is compound meter, 12/8 time. We have multiple pulse layers. We have the 12/8 notes that we count out like this, what I just did. And underneath that, we have the pulse that the listener hears and that the conductor would conduct. And that's 4 big beats in a conductor would go. Those 4 beats, he'd go 1, or she, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when we play this piece, that's what we hear. The audience hears it like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you'll hear it that way too, but you need to know that he is displacing the beat. He's moving, he's shifting everything. So when the new phrase begins, it's on the 4th beat, not on the downbeat. And that makes a huge difference. It's throwing you off a little bit. It's that element of the quixotic nature of moving water, constantly changing, and you never know when the next little ripple is going to come. and suddenly another little current's going to come in and jump in and throw it off. That's all built into this piece with his amazing writing. So now that we can put this back, I don't need that anymore for the lesson. Now we're at variation 1, and this is measure 13. It sounds a lot like measure 1. Listen to it now. It's the same key of A flat major. So we're back to that blue box in A flat major. Now the difference here, we still have the E flats and the A flats of measure 1 and 2, but he's doing it for the two hands, like this. And instead of here, he goes even farther, playing and drops from this F to this. That's a huge. And the murmuring part is also now taken with the two hands. But inside is still the clashing seconds dissolving into the thirds. Now, next system, and instead of the broken, he's blocking them the second time they're blocked. Here's the harmonic change with beat 4. Modulated to E major. Let me play this section now a little bit more up to tempo so we can still hear the murmuring elements and the sparkling. With the pedal point of E in the bass, and it's a whole note, and it holds, it's a dotted whole note. It holds for the entire 12 beats, and above it, now the murmuring element is for the left hand only, like this, only using, again, the dominant and the tonic that he has set up throughout the whole piece so far. In E major, that's the tonic, and B is the dominant, and here it is. And he goes one note above. And repeat. And then he goes down the half step, modulating to E flat major. And does this same thing. And now comes the box of exotic harmonies. I must go on. This is so unusual. have these chords, the clashing. That's why I call them exotic. And it's a setup for Cadenza number 2. Now let's go back. I'm going to show you one of the other features I love about these loose leaf engravings that I make. This is the old way they used to make music, loose leaf, not bound. And I can take my page 2 and my page 3 and line it up like this, and you can see here was variation 1 in the blue box. Here was cadenza number 1, variation 1 in the blue box. And here are the 2 green boxes, E major and E flat major. The exotic harmonies and cadenza number 2. So that is very nice to be able to read them. So starting back to back like that, starting with the right hand now on this measure 17, yet another element, which I call a descant. And these are rolled chords very up high. A descant is a song apart, literally, in Latin. It's an independent treble melody that's sung or played above the basic melody, which this is. And this little descant in E major is a series of rolled inverted chords. And there's our motive. And then this is so much fun to play. Liszt is loving this. I hear these as little sprays of water. I love to play them. And then dropping down the half step, same idea. And now continuing. Just sounds so Hungarian. it's so much that element of another culture. You know, Liszt was born in Hungary. He considered himself Hungarian, although he didn't speak a word of Hungarian, and he left the country for all of those years of concertizing and was based mainly in for the rest of his life. A lot in Paris during his teenage years and his early 20s. He was fluent in French, and everything he wrote was in French. But he was fluent in German and in Italian. This is a multicultural man, very learned. He was a scholar. He was an exquisite writer of words. He associated with poets and all of the avant-garde composers of the day, Wagner and Berlioz. He was a champion of new music. He's just a brilliant thinker. So he draws on all of these countries that he goes to and knows so well, Germany, Italy, and he did go back a lot to Hungary, and he formed, in the last 13 years of his life, I have to say this because Liszt is so often misunderstood and denigrated as just a flashy showman, and that is not the case. Yes, he had that element, but he had so much more. And please just let me say a little bit about this, that the last 13 years of his life, all the way up until he died at age 75, he divided his life in thirds. He called it a life in 3. And the first third of the year, he was in Budapest, working feverishly to start the Franz Liszt Music Academy, which he did and is still going today. And then to Weimar at the school there, where he did all of this teaching. He's taught. And then finally in Rome. That was his favorite place. And the Jardin à la Villa d'Este is where he lived. And he has a lot of pieces about fountains. And he liked the water. He was always drawn to the water. So this goes deep into his heart and soul, the spirit of Oborn Source and some of his other water pieces. But this Hungarian element, he always thought of himself as Hungarian. He said, I am Hungarian. And yes, he was. But here now, I didn't play the inner voices of this Tranquillo E major here, because we still have this going on. So if I put the hands together now, off tempo. The murmuring part in the left hand, the descant sprays of rolled inverted chords in the right, way up high, and always the same rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is all the cadenza number 2. What do you hear here? Just tonic and dominant, E flat and B flat. Of what key? Well, this is all a dominant E flat passage that's going to lead to what? Variation 2. Which we know is A flat major. It doesn't really sound like it so much here. But this E flat is leading you back to here. But it's very disguised. It's very sophisticated, the writing on that, how he gets back to variation 2. And now this is the final PDF that I made on this, what I consider the most difficult passage in the piece is this cadenza number 2, measures 23, 24, and 25. And I made this because it was so helpful for me to see the patterns and be able to share the steps that worked for me. So I titled this Double Descending Chromatic Scales. So what does that mean? That means, in this case, that the right hand has a descending scale coming down like this. And the left hand has one coming down like this. And they play at the same time. And I made those notes big and circled them in orange. And let's look at these patterns, because the fingering on this cadenza and fingering on anything in music is extremely important. But in a piece, in a virtuoso cadenza like this, your fingerings have to be the most solid thing of all, because it has to be rote memory. Your fingers have to do this by themselves and do it accurately. So notice here now in the right hand part that I have fingers 2, 2, 2, and above are these green lines and it says black keys. Then I have 1, 1, 1. Those green lines show those are white keys. Then 2, 2, 2, those are the black keys, and then 1, 1 white key. The left hand doesn't line up in that order, and that's why this is so difficult. It starts with 1 black key, and then has 3 white keys, and it's 3 black keys, and it's 3 white keys. So you're going to have to learn this hands alone and learn it carefully. And so these are the steps First of all, I showed that it's a descending chromatic scale. Now I'm going to take the right hand alone because it's more than just that. He's doing this. Now he's dropping to my white keys on my thumb. White key, and now the black keys again with the 2, 2, 2, 2, and the white key. Now I'm going to play my 5th finger loud, and then we're going to see what emerges at the very top here. And I'm going to use a little pedal so that I can make these top notes project so you can really hear them clearly. What did you hear? You heard this. What is that? It's a whole tone scale. Whole tone scales really weren't even used that much until much, much later in the Romantic period and into the early Impressionist period. But here's Liszt playing with this. Liszt was pushing the envelope even then in 1855 when this was published to be doing these elements. This is just so avant-garde. This really was a groundbreaking piece, and probably paved the way for Ravel's Jadot that came out in 1901, almost 60 years later. So then the other thing, I'm spending a long time on this because this really is going to help you not only with this passage but with other kinds of pieces that have these kind of passages in there that you may be intimidated by, and you don't need to be. You can learn these if you know the steps. So I played a lot with this, like this. This really amazed me. I just took the blocking of that same interval, that second that we have for the whole piece, and I played with it like this. I just thought that was so much fun. And I used the fingers 2, 3 on the blacks, 2, 3. And when the whites come, I use 1, 3. And now 2, 3. And 1, 3. You can do that really fast. And that's what Debussy did in one of his preludes, that very thing. Okay, let's get to the left hand here. This has broken minor 1, 2, 3 half steps is a minor third. They sound like minor thirds. They may not be written to spell minor thirds, but this is the sound that he makes. And then you finally, when you put it together as written. Now I'm watching the 2 with the black keys on the right hand. And making a new rhythmic grouping instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2. And that leads to the finish of all the 5s and 1s. is so joyful. What do you hear? Dominant, tonic. Dominant, tonic. The right hand you hear sixths coming down. Repetition, down the octave one more time. Inside you hear tiny little skipping waves. And you put that together. That's one of my favorite parts in the whole piece. Again, replicating those qualities of the water. You know, in Switzerland there's a long horn called the Alp horn. And it carries for miles the sound of the Alp horn. And I'm sure that Liszt was inspired by the horn sounds in those years in Switzerland. And he, to my ears, is incorporating a horn call here. This is where we are B major, and then to B flat major. Now he's still got these seconds, but instead they go to sixths, another variation. And here's this lovely da-dee-dum. So let's do this again. See, he's playing with that element all the time. And then, let's listen for that. Oh, and the murmuring part. Together. Has a pedal point because it's a green box. It's actually this 10th now, but it's a B that he's going to do, and this amazed me. He's got an embedded trill in B major. He's taking up here. Now listen to this. He's adding a punctuated B for that pedal point on the 6th beat and the 12th beat, below the trill. How imaginative is that? Listen to the effect that that has. I'm going to exaggerate that note that comes in there, the B, with the 5th finger. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then he does it again. What he's doing. He's building up another one of those pre-cadenza tension-filled back and forths. So if we have here, let's start at the B flat major, measure 35 to get the lead in, so you can see how that sneaks up on you. And instead of starting on 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. When we get to this point, he's going to be on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, go! Cadenza. So this has great impact of these now being on the beat notes, the slow 4 big beats that we hear. These are the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Whereas all of this fluid, ethereal, floating material is not on the 4 big beats. It's shifted. So this is, I really want to play this again for you, because these are the things you want to be listening for and thinking about when you shape it. When you learn your notes, put this in at the beginning. Don't wait. Some people say, oh, I'll learn the notes and then I'll go back and put in the expression. Well, then you're just going to have to unlearn the flat way you played it, go back and put it with the proper expression. So put it in right at the beginning. Just take it slower. You can do it. So let's do this whole thing. I want you to hear the shifting and the sparkling. This is all the diamonds on the water. Variation 3. But before we get there, let's talk about this cadenza number 3. This I labeled as a triple ascending chromatic passage because the right hand has this in it. And as usual in this piece, that passage repeats one more time up the next octave. He's doing that as a technique for constructing a lot of these long phrases to get all the way up the keyboard or all the way down the keyboard. It's a lovely pattern just to keep repeating the sequence up the octaves or down the octaves. So that's enjoyable. That's play. This is all delightful play. So how he does this, this is a little hard because the upper notes have just the fingers 4 and 3. You can practice it like that. I found that really difficult. This is an advanced piece. It's not as advanced as a lot of the things that Liszt wrote. This is one of the more playable pieces, but it does have its moments, which are in the cadenzas. So you give yourself a long time to learn them, and don't be frustrated if it doesn't come right away. Give yourself at least a year, maybe 2, maybe 5. So now with these, this is what I do. I think of these and group them with the 4 big beats, and I pull down with my arm like this. Here's the next one. Tremolo. The left hand now has its same. This is all this diminished sound. And this chord, I was so thrilled to see that in cadenza number 3, where we are right here in the piece, and cadenza number 1, right here, both start identically. I thought that was just kind of remarkable. And on the same part of the keyboard too, exactly the same. The first one, remember? That one, and this is this one. It's just curious that the cohesiveness of the piece. So this left hand now, if you block this to learn your fingerings, this helped me tremendously, blocking. You could block like if you wanted to, but those are your anchor notes. And one page turn here, and now my last 2 pages of the piece, 5 and 6 with variation 3 marked Brillante. This is spectacular. It's our A flat major, just like the beginning, but it's like this. So now we have these broken. He did that before with our page 2. No, he didn't. See, that's what I mean. These things are all different. This variation 1 didn't have the back and forth. It had a broken octave. This one had a blocked octave. Variation 3 has the broken octave. More play. And the left hand now has this a marcato at the top and a rolled chord. Do it. Whoops. And then no rolled chord the second time, but an octave in the bass. And a surprise G flat. Repeat it down the octave. But instead of 4, he gives us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know what's coming. Maybe you don't. Cadenza number 4. Oh my God. How thrilling is that? These as the 5th here. It's an E flat in the bass, but there's a 5th here. 5th, 4th, 5th, 4th, and now that sounds awful until you realize that it is a 5/7 cadence. That's all leading to the return of the tonic. The right hand has its 5ths and 4ths as well. But you know, I didn't play this whole thing here. I need to go back here because variation 3 with our this idea. It took me months before I found that was even in here. And it's worth mentioning it today in the lesson so that you will be sure to bring it out again between the 2 hands. I even circled in my music. You may want to do this too. Right here, this A flat in the right hand with the 4th finger, and then the thumb on the left hand of the G. Then this B flat is the 3rd finger I'm going to bring out, and then the thumb. And by bringing out those fingers intentionally louder than the others, because we have this 3-note chord, what we really have is to the next system, when it drops down to the octaves, it's also there. That's a big reach. Bring out that 4th finger. Bring those thumbs out. He's got marcatos on them. He wants them to jump out. Tempo now. Measure 41. this down. The murmuring part now becomes very complicated. And above it is a fourth, fifth, fourth, fifth, fourth, fifth, fourth. And he repeats it. And he blocks. This is really cool. Now we're on downbeats here. This cadenza is no longer shifted. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Except, look at this. This open measure here, it starts here on the fourth beat. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4. Only when we get to the cadenza does it now start on the 1. That makes a difference. It adds a rootedness to it. It adds a power to it. You're on solid earth here. And if I take just the fifths and fourths of each hand at cadenza number 4, this is what I have. Oh, is that? That's a beautiful chord, isn't it? That's polytonality right there. Here and a 7th here, but I really like to hear the 5th in here, because that's what he's leading to. Here's the descending passage. F, 2, 3, 4, 5, F, 2, 3, 4, 5, F, 2, 3, 4, 5, F, 2, 3, is a pentatonic scale. And he's building this with these intervals. Because it's got a pedal point in the bass, and we get one more time of the murmuring part in the left hand. It's so open, isn't it, when we have just the 5th, the 1 and the 5, that basic purity of the perfect 5th with a little added F. And the right hand has the same. Now he's going, instead of, he's going to take these, all going up now. And then, let's see. So it's just got the descant here. I'm going to play the descant by itself first. We've heard that before. Look how high up we are. That's the A flat. That's all that's left on the keyboard. It's maximizing huge, huge distance here. Way down here, and way up here. Tranquilo. identical to measure 1 here, this measure 55. But this fourth beat drops to a new pitch. You can tell he's bringing us down here. Together the hands now, our tempo. He doesn't want it to be over. And he's now going to hang on literally to these parts right here, this pre-cadenza measure of these beats. It's a very important part in the piece because we're holding this for the first and only time in the piece. I put these little green marks just for me. You can add them if you want. I didn't put them in the CSA. I can't put too many things in there or you lose the more defining elements. But this is worth mentioning that the lower stemmed voice here is a quarter note. Again, the empty measure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That 5, 6 is held. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then all on the beats. On the beats. On the beats. So let's see how he works this. We have in the bass now, instead of rocking fifths, we have rocking fourths, and the D flat is the subdominant of our home key. 4, 5, 1. So this is an elongated 4, 5, 1 cadence with all of this D flat in the bass, and he's building these. This is the staircase to heaven coming up right now. Let's put the hands together. Little bitterness, a pang of something, but hear the major. Do you see how that's a setup? If you're going back to this, you go, oh, thank God, I got out of that. No, I'm sorry. And he keeps with this same. And over it, the left hand is doing nothing but the pitches of the D flat major chord. But he's spreading out the D flat, F, and A flat like this. Playing again up the octave. Up the octave. And stop. And we put that together. intervals. Here, fourth, fifth, fourth. Now I watch this fourth A flat and eyeball the next one so I don't jump to the wrong one. Fifth, fourth, because the right hand's doing something different. It's coming down. Remember in this beautiful part, let's see, well, he's doing this again here as a reference, but it's changed. And they blocked intervals. Second, 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 third, third, second. Repeat the pattern now down another octave. Second, 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 third, third, second. Again, repeat down the octave. Second, 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 third. So what really helped me, and I circled these in orange as I learned this, go ahead and put that in your music. Just take your orange colored pencil and circle them. And I wrote here, this is the third of the F and the A. That's right. I'm sorry, the C and the A flat. The F is on the bottom, so it kind of makes that minor triad. But following those thirds, here with the 5-3, here, really helped me to track that. Because it's coming with this, the joined parts, they're coming together and they're going to be like passing ships in the night, like this, in the most gentle, tender way. This is marked with 3 P's, pianissimo. Just that C holds and our last. Flatted sixth, and the 5, E flat, and the tonic. And the tenor, C, D natural. I like to bring that out. Ways to roll that chord. I've done a lot of listening of various recordings of this piece. There are some outstanding versions, some of them from the 20s and 30s of historic recordings, and I'm always interested how people roll the chords. There's no one way to do it. In fact, you can't ever play it the same way twice with the rolled chord. And this here, linger on the top note. You do a faster roll. Anything is valid. So that is the Old source. And I'd like to close by saying that this title, source, S-O-U-R-C-E, the translation is stream. But I hear this as the source, the greater source from which all things come. And Liszt was a very religious man. He was a very dedicated man. He became an abbé in the later years of his life. He had always wanted to join the priesthood, and he had a visitation with that in his, when he was 16 and 17, his father, Adam, who was responsible for grooming him for an extraordinary international career as a teenager, and they traveled together. Really enormous hardships. I'm amazed at how difficult travel was in those days. Everything by stagecoach, and everything took days, and very difficult physical hardships. And they were in England and traveling around. He was playing in all the big halls, in all the major halls in Europe. And he came from humble beginnings in Hungary, raiding Hungary at that time. And his father was responsible. He knew he had a jewel. He knew he had to give Liszt everything possible. And he single-handedly shaped him by finding him the right teacher, taking him to Karl Czerny, who lived in Vienna at the time and was refusing to take anybody until he met Liszt, the 11-year-old. And he saw the expression on his face. And he said there was something that came over his face. And it is this source that Liszt had channeled always as a child. And he was very aware of it. And he signed his Liszt sonata to God at the end. He was a reverent man. And that's what the source means as a secondary meaning of Obotensource, of the homage, of giving it back, what was given to you, and giving it back. That's how I feel about this. And music gives us so much. It's really, it's what it gives us. It's not where it takes us out in the world. It's where it takes us innerly. And immersing yourselves in these tones and these gorgeous colors and harmonies and choreography between the hands and the luxuriousness and the imagination, the exquisiteness of this writing, it is going to feed your soul. It is going to comfort you, and it's always there for you. As long as you have your piano and you can work your fingers, you will always have it. It's one of the few things we can count on in life. And we're still in the pandemic right now. This is 2021. And India is raging out of control. We're having an absolute horrific situation. We've been living in sheltering in place and isolating for 14 months now. And we don't know when this is going to end. But we have our sources of comfort. We have our grounding. We have our timeless things that will always be with us. And this music and this piece is one of them. I hope this has been helpful for you. I've really enjoyed sharing it with you. Have a wonderful time with your Obotensource. Thanks.